Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters.
So we have lively talk on tax stuff, and it kind
A
of
little bit
leaned
more
into
about
the
that.
housing, and you want to mention a few more
Oh yeah, a
things
few more
about
things
the
here. I mean,
affordable
yeah, I mean,
housing
the whole,
overlay.
as Dennis Carlone and others mentioned, the discussion about the whole way in which city manages tax rates and whatever, they're actually going to do some dog and pony shows to sort of help explain these things for people who are interested
Yeah, which
at
is
some point,
important.
even if
yeah.
it's after they do the bond issuance after January. But
It would help.
I think it's helpful. And
I mean, they send out a newsletter and stuff, but it can get pretty.
Yeah, more people need to sort of learn about this as well. There's just one last thing I wanted to mention about the affordable housing overlay plan that's being
proposal.
floated. Yeah, I mean it's before Envision Cambridge. It's been in front of the housing committee.
It's been in front
it's
of a million
definitely within
committees.
city
the
staff.
Cambridge Port had, I couldn't go to it, but
Yeah.
they presented there.
They're making the rounds around the city, giving
Yeah.
presentations of
Right.
these so-called scenarios.
Right.
And it's three things. One is the affordable housing overlay. The other one has to do with super inclusionary, and another one was sort of an environmental beneficial, sort of an incentive for that. Okay. But what I heard, interesting thing to me from one of the city councilors, who was mentioning that a planning board member actually spoke about the housing overlay as it is currently proposed, and made the point that even if you think that the proposal is targeted exclusively for nonprofit housing developers to build 100% affordable housing at up to 4 times the density that would otherwise be allowed. The fact that at least according to at least one member of the planning board, they felt that any developer could just come in and say,
Yeah.
well, you can't pick and choose. I want to develop the property, and that's that. And if the zoning had been changed to permit it, I think that they could take it to court, and they could pretty much say, under the current zoning, I'm allowed to build to that density
Yeah, but if
too.
you change the zoning, isn't that the whole point of the zoning overlay?
Well, no, the thing is that right now, they can't build to quadruple density.
No, I know that.
Nobody could.
Right, because
Right, without a variance. But the thing is,
Right.
if you pass a law that says that some people can, even if they
Oh.
are doing the Lord's work,
oh,
then
so you
could-
can't designate a certain group to benefit from
there-
it. Is that what they're saying?
That's right. So
Okay.
then there becomes a point where you would make
Favorite-
a pretty
yeah.
simple legal case to argue that you can't pick and choose, and I want to do it too. And the way it's written, I think it's very, very questionable. So anyway, they may try and fix that in some way, but honestly, I
So
think
I'm
this
going to ask a
may be
simple
dead in
question:
the
Can
water.
the city say, okay, we have this area, and it can only development can be for affordable housing? Can they say that in
All
the
right, so
zoning?
then that would be different than creating an overlay. So the thing is,
Okay.
could you, for example, create,
Designate certain.
like right now, there's resident 1, resident
Right.
2, resident 3,
Oh, so
right?
you could change what you can build in some of those zones.
Right, so you could
Okay.
restrict use. Now, I don't
Okay.
know that you can designate a residential zone and say the only housing that's allowed to be
Probably
here
not.
is that.
I
So-
bet that would involve
Right,
state
okay.
involvement or
Yes,
something.
right. So,
Home rule petitions or
yeah,
something.
I mean,
yeah.
the thing is, the state's
Yeah.
pretty clear about, you can under the zoning code, which dates back to the 1920s, you can,
tweak the zoning
you
or-
can, I mean, originally it was, you can set this residence here, industrial here, commercial
Okay.
there, open
Mixed.
space
You
here,
could have
mixed,
mixed.
right?
Okay.
Okay, and then they started refining it, so it's residence C, residence
right,
A,
yeah, all the-
residence
yeah.
B, residence C1, resident.
Uh-huh.
So you can distinguish it, but it's based on characteristics, things like, is it multifamily allowed, right?
Yeah.
And most of us, well, I don't know most of us, but a lot of us feel multifamily housing should be permitted in all zones.
Mm.
But in a residence A, can't do it. Residence B, you
Give me an
can.
example. What's Residence A? Is that West Cambridge?
Well,
Is that Brattle Street?
well, remember, West Cambridge is not one monolithic thing.
Okay, all right. I
but-
shouldn't say West Cambridge. I
But so
should
what
say
we
off
would, we
of
would sort
Brattle
of
Street.
kind
Okay.
of loosely call Brattle Street, right?
Okay, all
But it's
right.
not just Brattle Street.
But is that Residence
it's
A?
the sort of big estates.
Right.
That's Res A, yeah.
Okay.
Now the thing is, I think Res B, you tend to have larger lots, so it's pretty low density.
Mm-hmm.
So you find a lot of those places out, maybe Strawberry Hill or some parts of West
Okay.
Cambridge. If you swing around to places like Mid Cambridge, you find a lot of residence C1, which basically is really where you see a lot of triple deckers, for example.
You see some apartment buildings that are like 10, 20 units,
Right.
right?
The thing is, there was a period of time, I think,
Older apartment
when the
buildings?
population of Cambridge was dropped and the taxable properties were, everything was caving in, there was a big incentive to incentivize, I wanted to incentivize apartment buildings. So there were old mansard roof buildings that used to exist lining all of Harvard Street, for example.
And they were taken
And
down?
they were torn down
Really?
to create these boxes,
Right.
right? Now
There's
some
a
of
lot
them,
of,
right,
well, there's a lot of apartments around where the library and where the Harvard
Yeah.
Art Museum is.
right. So the
Yeah.
thing is that, so, you know, I think it would be not a bad thing to consider is creating apartment building zones lining some of the corridors, which is a
sort
little
of
bit what Envision is talking
Exactly,
about,
right.
Is saying that
Right.
maybe that's not such a bad
I mean, it's
thing.
already happening. You go up to Porter Square, you see it. You go to
Well, but the thing is, in
Broadway.
Porter Square, there's densities that are allowable in Porter Square.
True.
But if you look at all Mass Ave from Harvard going out to Porter, there were a lot of like 6-story, 7-story buildings
Harvard
that were,
going out to Porter.
yeah, lining
Harvard
up. They
Street.
used to be called
Right.
hotels.
Yeah. No, I see it.
And they were there because they
Yeah.
were playing off of the Harvard student crowd.
Right.
You know, the sort of basic, well, not the, you know, the.
And then a lot of them were
the
rent
wealthy kids.
But a
right?
lot of them were rent control too. A lot of those.
Well, when
apartments were
rent control came in, they became rent controlled.
Exactly. Right.
And so that was a lot of the rent controlled stock were in a lot of those
Yes.
buildings that originally were
Ware
not.
Street, all that
controlled. That's
whole
right.
area there. Yeah.
Right. So the thing is that it's a perfectly plausible thing to consider to say,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe we need to, apartment buildingize a few
Yeah.
places in the city
Yeah.
to create a fair amount of supply of housing in those areas.
But then why? But then how do you keep any developer from doing that by having
You don't.
competition with cash for the other developers?
No, honestly, it would be whoever wants to build it would build it. But the thing
Right,
is
but you
that-
need money. I mean, that's what the woman from the
Right.
affordable.
But-
It
but-
comes down to just having more money to compete against these places.
That's right. Right. But
So-
the bigger problem today, I think, is that, and again, see, some people will probably greatly disagree with me about this,
Yeah,
but
maybe me. What?
right. The bigger problem is just that there's simply an inadequate supply of housing in the entire region.
In
And
the entire region
now, if you just sort of
where
say,
people want to live, you mean?
right now,
Okay.
and I think this Boston metro area mayors group that they had some
Yeah.
announced in the paper today. They're basically saying we all just have to build more housing. Now, does that mean subsidized housing? There'll be a mix of that mixed in,
Right.
no doubt.
Right.
Okay, but it doesn't mean let's build nothing but subsidized housing. It means we just
Right.
need more housing.
Right.
You know, if somebody's coming in to get a job in a high-tech industry here, they're not going to be applying for subsidized housing. They're just looking for housing.
Right.
And you know, there's this. I think it's sometimes done purposefully as a purposeful confusion made between, you know, the people who say, well, you know, everybody thinks they place in the city surveys. They'll say we place affordable housing as a high priority, but they misrepresent what people are actually
what do
saying.
they mean by that? Yeah.
Right? So the thing is, if you're just an average person or family and you're looking for a place to rent or buy within your budget, then you are concerned about the affordability of housing. That's not the same as building affordable housing,
right.
meaning subsidized
Right.
housing that you can
Yeah.
access only by applying through the housing
It is.
authority.
It's a word that should be
Yeah,
retired
but
in some way or
I
something.
think that
I think
that
subsidized
there are-
really says what it is.
But there are some people within the housing
Yeah.
division of the city's community development
Yeah.
department who I think purposefully
like to use
they
that.
like to use this ambiguity because they say everybody wants affordable housing, but that's not the same thing as just building 100% subsidized housing.
Right.
The city does actually have a significant number
Yes.
of those units. Do we have enough? Maybe, maybe not.
I don't know. I was canvassing, back before the primary, and I was amazed at some of the places I was going to in Porter Square that obviously have a lot of inclusionary
Right,
units.
but then people in the housing authority
Yeah.
say, but we have a waiting list that's,
Well, that's true
many,
too.
many people. But then again, if
it-
you're looking for housing in the region, you're on Cambridge's waiting list, you're on Somerville's
Right.
waiting list, you're on Boston's waiting list.
I wonder if we have more per our population and our
We do.
square miles than some other places.
We do, and there's no
Yeah.
question. The thing is
Yeah.
that there are a lot of the towns around here are they call them 40B towns because they don't have an adequate supply of
Right.
affordable housing. So consequently,
And there's a stigma about it
right.
in
So
a lot of those
so
places.
what happens
yeah.
is somebody says, "Well, I bought this property. I want to develop it."
Mm.
They say, "I want to do such and such a thing," right? And then the people in the town say, well, we don't want you to build those apartment buildings. They go, well, okay, fine. In that case, I'm going to go seek a comprehensive permit under Chapter 40B, right, which was the so-called snob zoning provision in state law. And then I'm going to put in a lot more housing units, and they're all going to be subsidized units. And then they use it as kind of a wedge, because then people go, well, maybe we're okay with the apartment buildings you were
So
proposing
I
in the
don't,
first place.
so in other words, we'd rather you just do the apartment building than use the word
So
loan.
so the 40B is not always used in the best way, right? Sometimes it is, but the thing is that that's not an issue in Cambridge, because the only towns for which that's can happen are towns where they have below a certain threshold.
Right.
Cambridge is above the threshold.
Right.
We're probably up around like the 15% range. You know, and you have to. We're significantly above the range. So, so I personally have the opinion that Cambridge has actually done a lot and continues to do a lot. But we cannot house the world.
And also, will that housing house the teacher? Will that house the person that makes only 100? Only, you know.
Some of the,
see, that's
I
the
would
thing, you know?
for that I would say that the inclusionary units, and nobody's challenging the wisdom of the inclusionary units. Those are a place where if you were a school teacher or
You could be
you might have a shot at
eligible
that.
for
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because it targets middle income people.
Well,
right?
so do the buying one. I mean, I remember looking at
Buying or renting.
what was the one along Memorial Drive there that Harvard, not Squirrel. What's the name of it? An S. Right behind the electrical plant.
The Switch
there.
House?
Switch House.
Yeah.
Those were, I looked at that a while ago. They were like 188,000. You could get something. If
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not peanuts,
No,
but
no,
back
no,
then.
but that's right.
So you could
That's
have
right.
had a moderate income
Yeah.
and be able to buy
No,
that.
I think the moderate income programs the city does are very, very, very thoughtful.
Plus, they had said then that, because someone asked, I went to one of these meetings, well, what if I get a windfall, or what if my job change, I make a lot more? That's fine, that's good for you. In other words,
there's a
but
deed
when you
restriction.
sell it, right,
Yeah.
you cannot.
So you can't turn it into a
Right.
big profit
Although some
center.
counselors, I seem to remember, didn't like that. They felt like you should be able to.
Well, I mean,
but
there was at
just
least
think it's
one who
only
was
fair.
living in one such unit who wouldn't
right.
have minded to
Oh.
make a little extra money.
All right, well, I don't know
You know,
about
I mean,
that.
you know,
I'm thinking,
that's
you
the
know.
limited equity question.
Right, and I understand.
What's the
I mean, you get a
limitation what it should be? Should
I
you be able
think
to make a
so,
little
because
money,
otherwise
a
someone
little
else is
equity?
going to be able
Yeah.
to live there. I mean,
Right.
it's supposed to be continuing and not just
Right.
right.
Right. So
Anyway,
right. So it's a sort of set aside housing stock.
and good for you if you make
That's
more
right,
money, and
that's
then whatever.
Anyway, this
Whoa.
issue isn't really going away.
No, it's going to be
In
with
fact,
us.
one of the orders at the city council meeting last night was basically, and I'm a little confused by it, quite honestly, but basically there's all this big laundry list of recommendations that came out of the Envision Cambridge working
Oh, and that
groups.
did get referred to each of the
Right,
committees.
but
yeah.
I look at them and saying like, well, wait a minute, was that the idea? You have all these working groups who just come up with these big lists of
Yeah.
things that they say,
Or should there be one?
we
big-
want this
yeah.
the most, we want that.
Yeah.
That's not what I thought Envision Cambridge was supposed to culminate with. I thought it was going to be a comprehensive report, a plan, a vision,
Like incorporating all of these different
right?
things
And all these various
trying to blend them
pieces
together.
will be kind of,
Yeah.
you know, thought holistically together.
Right.
So, but the council is sort of hot to trot. They went, quick, send this one to this
To
committee.
the
that,
hazard,
and
send
yeah.
this one to economic
All right,
development.
and then they said, well, that's maybe because they think, I think Carlone said, Envision wants feedback from us. I said, okay, so that's what you want? So you're not actually maybe you're prioritizing, is this like one last shot to go back to Envision so that by December they come back with
Yeah.
a report that integrates councilors' ideas? If that's true, then that's good, that's fine,
Yeah,
right? I'm all for that, you know. But anyway,
it's a lot of hearings.
but right, but you know, somebody was complaining about, well, we've got so difficult scheduling, and I looked at it and said, there are 3 months left in the year. There are a total of 5 city council committee hearings scheduled in a course of 3 months. I
Yeah.
don't think that's such a heavy schedule. I'm sorry. So if all of the council committees that have a piece of the action looking at these recommendations can meet a couple of times between now and the end of, let's say, mid-December, then do it. It's, you know, you guys
What
are
was
getting
the mention
paid.
about the ordinance
It's a
taking it.
job. You know what that is, folks?
Yeah, no.
It's a job.
No, I know.
Go to work.
But wait a minute. But somebody talked about that it should come before the ordinance. Did I
Well, the
just
thing
hear
is
something?
that
What was that about?
one aspect of Envision Cambridge, probably the biggest one, is that ultimately zoning legislation would
Right.
have to be passed to
And that is
effect some of the recommendations.
Right, and that would be an
Right.
Or-
Now, some of these are just budgetary recommendations. They don't necessarily need zoning. Quality of life things, or maybe passing, they're not all zone. It's not all zoning, right?
No.
Some people think it's all zoning, but it's not all zoning.
well, it seems to be predominantly housing.
Right.
I mean, I don't know about the economic.
But the thing is that the right. So there's a lot of things with the economic development package. There are ideas to work with here. But the thing is that you can't do zoning just by snapping the fingers and do it. It has to go through a process with the ordinance committee. So the idea is, all these committees, they hash out things, and then they pass it along to the ordinance committee,
That makes
and
sense.
then they start dealing with the zoning. Though I think the way it really would have to work is that somebody would have to propose specific zoning, and then that's what gets passed to the ordinance
But
committee.
shouldn't that all happen after the final report? I mean, fine to have the committee hearings, but then
In
the
my
final
view-
report, Envision put, and then the city council has to deal with it.
That's how I think it would be. It would
I mean,
be
with
better.
the whole thing.
Right.
But I could
But
see
I'm-
having individual hearings,
Right.
I
I'm
guess,
not.
but.
I'm
yeah.
not. I'm hopeful that when
Yeah.
Envision Cambridge is finished, and I'm on
Yeah.
the advisory committee, but I hope when it's finished that there'll be a nice, bound, good,
Oh, I'm sure for $3 million,
thoughtful-
isn't that what it is?
Right. I mean,
a lot of
I don't
money.
think it was all
Yeah.
just about to have a bunch of meetings and have a bunch of brainstorming
No,
sessions.
there's
for
gonna
goodness
be
sake.
a big report, but,
Right. And the thing is, hopefully, it has a narrative. See, that's what's missing is the narrative. Right. All you
Yeah.
got now are lists, and to me,
ideas, you have,
yeah, saying,
Yeah.
hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Man, we think this is a really good thing to do. But you need to have a narrative
Need a
to sort of
story.
glue together. And as
Story,
actually
yeah.
Councilor Carlone correctly pointed out, you can talk about quality of life, mobility, blah, 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 blah. I don't know that there's been a single word I've heard yet about infrastructure.
yeah, it's true.
Whether we're talking roads or electrical infrastructure to support the economy of the future,
That bridge in Elway.
or the resiliency aspect
Yeah.
of infrastructure as well.
Well, where
you
would
know,
that come under? Which committee would that be?
There was not a working group to look at that. you
Quality
know?
of life, no?
And then by default, those things would have come
Wasn't
back
there
to
an
the
environmental
advisory.
or health and environment type thing, no?
Yeah, but the problem is that's
Yeah.
become sort of
That's true.
pigeonholed now.
Yeah.
It's
It's an infrastructure, it's
when you
true,
talk about
yeah.
like when we were getting into recycling stuff, environmentalism meant recycling, which
Yeah.
was really silly, right?
No,
But that's what
Yeah.
people were into then, right?
Right.
Then it became energy, and then it became this, and then it
waste
became
reduction,
that, right?
yeah.
So the thing is, right now,
Energy
climate change
efficiency.
is sort of like the big
Yeah.
thing, right? So, from my point of view, when I was looking at the recommendations that were coming out of that particular committee, it was all seemed to be gated toward that, and that's good. I'm
Yeah.
sure there are great recommendations in there, but there are plenty of things left out, and certainly I think one huge, I think I might have mentioned it last week. I don't remember. I was ranting. It was the whole master plan business was kicked off because
Yeah.
people were pissed off about traffic on Alewife Brook Parkway. 3 years later, Envision Cambridge reports comes back. Actually, 3 years plus comes back, and I don't know that they're addressing anything on there.
I know.
Now maybe it's something they
I
can't
hope
do
so,
because
but-
it's regional pass-through traffic and
Well, I
whatever.
could still address the whole quadrangle and the bridge and all that.
Well,
I mean,
and
that
you
would,
can have a recommendation to
Right.
sort of
Well,
start working
it
more
could
with the
be in
state
there.
and the
It could be
DCR
in there.
about
We
dealing
still
with
don't know.
this.
It could be in there.
Yeah, we'll see.
Except
you
you're
know.
on the advisory committee,
Yeah, but
so
you know-
would think you would know some
But
of that.
the advisory committee for not that I was looking to have any great authority or anything, but if in many respects it feels like we were just some sounding board for
Yeah.
ideas that were already made by
Well, isn't
other
that always
people.
what happens when someone hires people that are paid to do something, and then the advisory is strictly advisory?
Right.
You have no
Yeah, and
clout.
I got no issue
Yeah.
with the expertise of UTIL, and the various partners
Yeah.
with UTIL in this. I think they were really great, but but they didn't have all the answers. And
But what about, you mentioned your participation, that you didn't feel there was enough, and that's been brought up a lot, that is it really reaching, they've had a lot of meetings, but who's going to those meetings?
So each of these working groups, as well as the advisory committee itself, the overall advisory committee, probably had in the neighborhood of about 20 people on each of them. So there's a lot of people involved in this process.
Yeah, but are they still involved?
Well, that's been a problem. So what happens is even the advisory committee meetings, even though we have about 20, they're meetings when we've had as few as 5.
The one I went to last week where they presented, there were like 4 of you from the advisory committee.
And then here I am on the committee, and I get to speak. So I speak my mind, and I say, I'm trying to be helpful. And then but if I'm saying something that somebody in the audience doesn't like, they sort of say, well, he's not representative. I go, you're right. You're absolutely right. I could not possibly disagree.
Right.
But I am here, and the other people didn't show up.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to shut up.
Right.
All right. So we sort of let more of the public sort of chime in.
But there was more public than the members.
Then, and that's fine. Actually, I kind of thought when this whole thing kicked off, we have a lot more public participation in these various meetings. It seemed like it was like pulling teeth to sometimes to sort of do all this outreach.
Well, it seemed like
they did better outreach than any other public process I've seen.
Really?
But the thing is, you spread it out over 3 years. People start losing interest.
I know.
And when you get down to the end game,
yeah,
when you really want everybody to sort of come together,
yeah,
and then people don't show up.
Now it's.
I'm not just trying to put a gold star on myself here, but in the housing working group and on the Envision Cambridge advisory group, I'm the only one who made it to every meeting.
Was there anything in any of this around education?
Only there was sort of they weren't using the word quality of life, but there was one there was some discussion, but not a lot, honestly.
That's a big part.
I don't think it was a lot, right? But so maybe they kind of felt it was a little bit out of their expertise as well. So, but
where schools get built, who they attract.
It belongs in the narrative, right?
In the narrative,
so many people have pointed out. I think people, when they were filing lawsuits about what was going on down in North Point, they were saying, you're building this all for this, that, and the other, but if you want to build a neighborhood, you're not building any schools. Yeah. And I heard this exact same criticism up in
the
north of the Alewife Quadrangle. And I said, well, I think they have a point. I mean,
Except isn't Tobin getting a whole that's on the next line?
Yeah, I understand the point, but I would look at it and say, Tobin's not that far away,
and especially if they expanded into it.
So, but the point is that it deserves to be part of the conversation, part of the narrative when all is said and done. So.
All right, we have a few minutes left. What are we going to cover here?
One thing I think is worth doing. Let's go jump down to some of the Central Square stuff here.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so we talked some while ago about the impending murals in Central Square. All right.
We don't want to show the budget.
Yeah, skip them. All right, but okay, so actually, let's go back to Massimo here just a little bit here, and then we'll just sort of here we go. All right. So one of the things, I just put something up on Facebook, so I recreated here a little bit with a little extra, just called it The Changing Face of Central Square. So that's a picture taken just a few days ago, really, of the Mass and Main building, which is really starting to look pretty substantial. I think they're up to maybe 15.
How many stories will it be?
About 19 total. So
really?
I think they're pushing up into the 16th story now, right?
12,
so okay,
it's about 13 here.
So anyway, it's happening, and it looks imposing right now, but at some point they'll put the skin around it, and it'll start to look like a building rather than a Tinker Toy set. But it's kind of interesting. So let's scroll down a little bit more here. Okay, now we talked about the murals. Now
the Central Square Mural Project, which you can donate to. You should go to the Central Square Business Association. I'll get more information.
So I got to see some of the designs, not all of the designs, but for some of the murals, and I was really worried because I was concerned that we would be mediocre. I didn't want to do the same old refrigerator art scale type of stuff. So I saw this one here, and the moment I saw the image on just a photographic image of what's planned, I said, "That's great." So on Saturday they had the crane up there, and it was the guy. Actually, if you scroll down a little more, you'll actually see him right in here. So
Can you
here's our
refresh
fellow.
us? This is where the
This is where the Sims that
what I call it Sims, but
SYMS, right?
Yeah.
So that got
Right.
painted over,
Wonderful.
and then
Yeah.
they're applying this here with a beautiful face. There's a
Mm.
zebra, and there's more to come. It's actually not finished. So let's just sort of wander
Yeah.
down a little bit more here. So there's just a few different shots, different views.
I think
So he's doing a lot of this just with a regular spray can.
So there's one person. Is he the
This is what-
artist?
He's the artist, yeah.
Oh.
Now, I don't know whether it's the same person who's putting it up because he's
Oh,
working
so
from
this
a
is where he
photograph.
is. Yeah.
But this is the kind of how they had to do it. You can see the big crane.
So are they going to get rid of this part? Is this going to stay on this? Fat
I am
wire,
going to
whatever
ask
that
Morris
says?
to please take that off because, but that's
Yeah,
not part of the
it's
plan.
not
So
part
let's
of
go
it.
down a little more here.
Okay.
So anyway, so this is a close-up of our hero.
Do you know his
applying-
name?
I have it, but I don't know it off the top of my head. But there he is. He's got the photo in his left hand, and
Oh,
he's got the
right.
spray can in the other, and he's
Oh, boy.
basically making it happen.
Jeez.
And it's continuing, and here we are. I think
This
was
is almost done, no?
right. So this is, I think, on Sunday I came by, and you can see here now it's filled out to the left, but it's not done. There's still
Okay.
more to come down at the lower
Oh,
section
and
of it.
also maybe where the zebra is.
Yeah, and off to the right
and off
here.
to the
Yeah, so
right,
this,
yeah.
So so I'm sure the crane will be up, and we got a little ways to go here.
there won't be words.
I hope we really.
I mean, if you
keep
saw the photo,
words
is
to the
there?
minimum.
There's no words in this.
I don't think so on this one, but I don't remember 100%. I want no words. Honestly, I want to see just
Yeah.
beauty. I
Well,
want
a lot
everything
of
to
them
be
don't have words.
stunning.
Yeah,
I want
okay.
it just to be fabulous. So.
Very nice. Yeah. So it looks like this has to get done up here.
Yeah, so there's
and,
definitely
yeah.
some is happening here. So
Nice.
so anyway, it's happening.
That's nice.
And if you go over on Green Street right
They
now,
started that?
there's one of those small little cranes because it's only like a two
This
or
is
three
the one by
story.
the library.
It's actually on Green Street around the corner. They're going to
Okay,
do the front of
yeah.
the library as well, but
Right.
now there's
It's
a
on the-
very
okay.
interesting mural is planned for there. They've got the apparatus to go up and put it on, and that'll be spread. They were actually it only takes a few days to do some of these, so I'm looking for. I go by every day, and to see if there's any
Very
activity
nice.
there. But it was a little rainy today, so it wasn't going to happen.
But yeah, definitely go. They
be
do,
on the
They are
lookout.
raising money for this, so
Yes,
try to
yeah, and I
support it.
I'm pretty good with what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, no, it's
And
very
it's
nice.
definitely a
So
lot more to
next
come.
week
We'll
taking
be off
off
next
because it's a
week.
holiday on Monday.
So
and
happy
we'll see you in 2
Indigenous
weeks.
Columbus Day,
oh
etc.
right, yeah.
See you then.
Bye.